Peggy Schwer.
Here.
Auden Schendler.
Here.
Jennifer Riffle.
Present.
Ryan Slack.
Here.
Jackie Whitsitt.
Here. Okay, we have a volunteer on the council to read our Basalt is an Inclusive, and he's going to act it out.
No, I'm not. My mouth is full. Okay. Basalt is an inclusive, sustainable mountain community that boasts both historic charm and progressive vision. It is an engaging place to live, work, and play while offering an abundance of creative, professional, educational, and recreational outlets.
I guess I'm the only one talking. Okay. On our consent agenda, we have the minutes from the May 22nd meeting, a special event activity permit, Aspen Valley Marathon, a special event activity permit, Market Street block party. Is there anybody that wants to ask questions about that or pull any of those off? Or is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. Let's see. This next section is our call to the public, where people in the audience are invited to make comments about items that are not. This sounds really loud to me today.
That is loud.
I'll just get back a little ways.
The recording sometimes sort of backfeeds or something if it's too
I mean,
loud.
it's not backfeeding, but it's just
Well,
sounds.
for me, it does.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
So it should be comments,
now.
the comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive. Please remember to limit your comments to 3 minutes. You're requested to identify yourself by name. Town council will not make decisions or take action except to direct the town manager during this section. So please feel free if you have any comments for items that are not on the agenda. Yes, Rick.
What's up? Good evening. How you doing? Rick Stevens from Basalt. I'm here tonight to just say thank you to several people that helped us pull off a 98 team youth lacrosse tournament down at Crown Mountain on Mother's Day. And I apologize for getting here a little bit later than I should have to thank you all. It's become quite the effort to put that tournament together. It involves the Forest Service, Eagle County, Basalt Rural Fire Protection District, Town of Basalt, whatever 98 teams, wherever they're coming from, Wyoming, Utah, Grand Junction, Colorado Springs, Denver. It's pretty amazing that it gets pulled off in a 2-day time frame. The scope of it is widespread. We take over the hotel here on Midland Avenue with referees, and they get housed there. We have deals at the Elements offered. Whole Foods bulks up their food order. City Market, likewise, Wendy's. The staff down there is incredible. The board members that support their efforts supported our efforts. We changed the parking arrangements this year. We have to provide evacuation plans and medical tents and traffic control, and you know, it's kind of like Barnum and Bailey's 3-ring circus. But on top of that, and on top of that, we had John Whittier, Ryan Westling, Robert Rosinda from Public Works down there for 2 days helping us park, thanks to Ryan and Boyd. Dorothy Howard has always been engaged. She comes up with some last minute things like a field liner and a case of paint and things like that we need. Connie at the front desk was always helpful. We ended up calling her a couple times at 2 minutes after 5 on emergency need, to get something from the town, a tape measure, whatever the heck it was. And she was there for us as well. So I just want to say thanks on behalf of the lacrosse club, the Aspen Lacrosse Club. We have about 400 children in that program now, and the men's league just cranked up last Wednesday night down at Willits, and we will have a full summer schedule down there. Steamboat Vale, some guys coming up from Denver. So it's a good program, and people love playing down at Willits. It's a great field, great facility, easy to get to, and close to Capitol Creek Brewery. It works out pretty good. But anyway, thank you very much, and we hope we can get your support for next year.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
I just wanted to add Rick's comment about the parking situation. For those who haven't been here before, it was less than organized in the past, but it still worked, but now it's completely organized, and it's really appreciated for the folks who live in the valley trying to get up and down some of these roads, so thanks to you and
Well, thanks,
the crew.
thanks for the Forest Service for letting you use that property.
Yeah, really. Okay,
Thank you.
yeah. I just want to quickly thank Grassroots for being here and for broadcasting our meetings live. People get to watch the meeting live right now tonight, or they can go to grassrootstv.org and watch it when they're super bored and want something exciting. Our videographer this evening is Amy Gobb and intern Olivia, who we just met. Tomorrow is the mayor's coffee at 8 o'clock at Starbucks. I am there. Anybody is welcome to come. If you drink straight black coffee, I will buy it. Let's see. Also, we have got a notice, and I have seen some emails about this, but Picken and Eagle looks like they are both issuing stage 1 fire restrictions. So I would say if you are concerned at all, you should go online and read further about that. Council comments.
I don't think you're done with public comment.
Yeah,
Oh, public
and
comment? Oh,
Jackie, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
So I want to introduce a topic, and then we have a member of the public
okay,
who.
great.
Can I do that here?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so, council, this is a really interesting opportunity. The Basalt Vista Housing Project is going, and it's awesome. And recently, Core and I approached them and said, hey, what about, instead of running a natural gas line to the project, not doing that, running it on electricity, using heat pumps to heat the water in the buildings, and making it one of the first projects in the state, and even broader than that, that addresses this core problem with addressing climate change, which is, how do you heat buildings? And Holy Cross Energy has said the path to a climate fix is electrifying everything, because if Holy Cross gets to 100% clean power, your heating is carbon neutral. So we approached Scott about this, and he's in the process of doing this project, and he was open to it. We had a meeting today. The support for the project includes Holy Cross, Picken County, Town of Basalt, I suspect, and the school district. And they need about $100,000 over 3 years to cover that gap. So what I would like to do is figure out if there's a way that Town of Basalt can participate in that in some capacity. There are multiple buckets it could come out of. The green team has a chunk of money, as you know, we all dedicated to this type of thing, so we could put a little of that money in. There's also the Holy Cross Public Purpose Fund that could go into this. So it's a huge opportunity. The only challenge is we have to act in relatively short order. Core is gonna put in arguably we can get them to put in a big chunk of money. So it's a great opportunity. And Brian Hannigan, who's the CEO of Holy Cross, blitzed up here from his office to make a comment in support of that. He's right here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Council members, good evening. I'm Brian Hannigan. I'm the president and CEO of Holy Cross Energy. I've been here for about a year now. And to Council Member Schindler's comments, we're actually looking at doing the same thing for our Aspen facility at the Aspen Business Center. We're looking at taking that to all electric, and we're looking at the costs associated with heat pumps and other sources of delivering heat. The council member's absolutely right that when we look at the climate challenge, renewable electricity with its cost improvements and its technology improvements is the easiest part of this. Getting heating and getting transportation in the form of things like electric vehicles and mass transit. Those are the longer sticks that we've got to work on. And so I think there's a tremendous shared interest between ourselves and this development, and I think that in addition to the sources of potential support that Auden just mentioned, I think we would be interested in helping that project along as well, because I think it serves as a role model for some of the other developments that we may see follow in the community. I mentioned our facility at Aspen. We're also in conversation with the Colorado Mountain College as they look at building out their Spring Valley campus. They're looking at turning that into a net zero, carbon-free educational institution. So I think you could add a lot to the momentum in this valley towards a more sustainable energy system.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have talked to Ryan a little bit about this already today, so as I said earlier, we don't make decisions on spur of the moment, and this is kind of spur of the moment for us.
Understood.
But Ryan is already looking for funding sources that are not general fund or not earmarked for something else, or that we haven't talked about other projects, so it's very possible that there is money
Yep.
out there, and we will work with Auden and whoever to see what we can do.
We'd be happy to have that conversation with you.
Super.
Thanks
Thank you
very
for
much.
coming in.
Thanks for coming, Brian.
Hopefully you live in Basalt and you don't have to drive back down Valley.
Sadly, I just closed on a place up Valley and down Valley in Carbondale.
Well, you're close
So
anyway.
we'll start here, and then maybe they'll get there too.
You'll promote yourself on up to Basalt.
You bet.
Okay, thank you. All righty, bye-bye. Okay, is there anybody else who has a comment in the public that I didn't recognize?
Yes,
Please come right on up and,
come right on up.
yeah.
I'm Lynn Mace from the Chocolate Gallery, and this is for Ryan and Tim Vogel and Trevor and Boyd. And I would like to give a huge shout out to the gardens and how they look, especially the gardens coming into Basalt. They are getting to be fantastic with a lot of hard work. And they have also been extremely kind and helpful to us on the Basalt Chamber Sign Committee as we get ready to install the new sign over at BBCA or Southside or whatever you want to call it. So, thank you, Ryan. We're flower buddies.
Yay, hey, Ryan. Also, since we're shouting out and whatnot, the Public Works folks have done a killer job of getting our streets repaired and looking beautiful without really that much pain and suffering, I don't think. And, maybe the Willits roundabout, a little bit of pain and suffering. But the streets look fabulous. I know we've been planning this for a while, and so anyway, thanks you guys for doing a really good job and not causing the citizens that much agita. So, okay, other council comments? Yes, sir.
I have a comment. Thank you to everyone that worked on the car show last weekend. I thought it was awesome. It's always one of my favorite weekends of the year. So kudos to everyone that put that on.
It is a
you.
great one.
Amy
Thanks,
does
Ryan.
the work. Amy Groom.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Others?
Yeah, Albany Kittle is the most heavily hiked trail here, and there's a guy who has adopted it with, I believe, his wife, and I've seen him there twice. His name's Michael Hutton, digging out really nice water bars and just
Wow.
spending a whole day up there. You know him, I'm sure, leaving a bucket up there and a shovel and coming back. I mean, it really looks good.
Well,
That's-
it's great when citizens can take initiative and take care of the public lands. It's awesome.
Wow, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
He was our,
He was.
officer.
That's why that sounded familiar. Anybody else? Jennifer?
On that theme, there is a trail the hillside trails, behind Basalt. And I'm excited to see more people out on them. And as well, I would just like to raise the awareness around taking care of our trails. So there's a much more usage on them, and therefore larger rocks are being kicked loose. And just as it is with Red Hill and Carbondale, they sent out a public awareness of when we do get rain, please be aware if your foot and there's no biking up there, but some people do bike up there. If your shoe or your tire leaves a print, don't continue forward. So, with the hopes of rain, I'm being proactive with my initiative. As well, bears are out. I had a citizen show me a photo of large bears in Willits. And let's do the bears a favor and secure our trash and our recycling. That is the number one thing that we can do for them. As well, if you see a bear, you don't need to call the police and let them know that you see a bear. I'm sure Chief Knott, you appreciate that.
And please don't chase the bears trying to get pictures.
Yeah, so don't be paparazzi with the bears either. And be good neighbors with them, because we are living in their habitat. And I appreciate everyone's patience with all of the paving that's going on. And then I look forward to the wetlands seating area by RMI. That's such a beautiful spot, and there are some invasive species that are growing in there, and it would be fantastic for us to maintain some of our truly gem places that we have developed. And other than that,
Thank you. Great, positive announcements, everyone. You got anything, Katie?
I think I'm.
Everybody covered it? Okay. Manager Brian?
Yeah, a couple items. So in response to your statement on the wetlands, you know, we have an obligation to keep those free from invasives. And in fact, just had, now with, we've got Tim Vogel on, we have an extra hand to be assisting with some of that. We also likely get a crew in from the Wrightful Correctional Facility to help do some of the pulling of those invasives. And then as a third note, we actually had somebody from DHM put together a nice list with photos of leaf on and then or excuse me, of flower on and leaf of being able to identify those, so that when we're out in the field with you know, folks like from the correctional facility, they may not be versed in identifying those, that we can pretty easily do it. And so I think it's this year that we would ultimately be closing out.
We're hopeful that this would be our first opportunity to close out on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit.
Great.
So we'll be working on that this summer.
a quick one. I just remembered there's a PVC leak under the walking path right there by the wetland seating area.
Okay.
I was there the other evening around 5:30.
Is it a drainage pipe or a water pipe?
It's a water pipe.
Okay.
And there's a ball valve right there, and it's leaking from the ball valve connection. And it's
Thanks.
a pretty steady stream.
Okay, good. Thank you. Let's see, second, I just wanted to touch on the paving piece as well. I did invite Boyd and Matt to come this evening, tempting them with Chinese food, to just comment if there were any comments from you all or anything that you'd heard from the public. I was out in the field on last week, Thursday, when they were doing the roundabout, just to go check it out. Matt has been the main person that's really been keeping an eye on the traffic control, and I want to make sure that I commend him for his hard work. This is, as we talked about recently when we signed the contract, sort of a new approach with having a general contractor oversee all the road maintenance, and so far that's working out tremendously for us. So it's moving forward in great fashion. By the end of this week, we should have Two Rivers Road completed, and so after that they'll come in and do the striping, so everything will look nice and new and neat. So anyway, thank you, Matt, for all that. And then there was a question posed to me last week with regard to water restrictions, and so I did take a look in our code book, and we do have in the code that we can enforce water restrictions, and it's really tied to the availability of water. So do we have water to fight fires if that should come up, as well as access to water for our customers. We do have on our website that the watering restrictions are in place, and so those can be found there, and it's depending upon your address being odd or even, those are you have associated days that we prefer watering. Later in the summer, we may do a greater outreach on that because we will be taking our million-gallon tank offline to service. And so we will still have the south side tank. We will still have 260,000 gallons near the water plant. But nonetheless, it might just be a good precautionary measure to get into place. So with that, if you have any other questions about water restrictions, I'm happy to dive into those. I did speak with our water attorney about the restrictions and got a little more information just so I could educate myself with regard to our water rights. And so our portfolio is such that we're not at risk right now of not having enough water. So we're in pretty good shape there. So just as a feedback for that. And I think that's it. I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Ryan at all? Okay, thanks so much. Okay, we are now to the moment we've all been waiting for. We have a local hero in our midst, and we have finally invited her to come in and be acknowledged by the town of Basalt for her wonderfulness and bravery. So would you care to come up to the table in case you have something to say? There's a mic there. Oh, good. Thanks, Amanda. So we have prepared a little presentation for you, and then we'll let you give a speech if you want to. Not to put you on the spot.
An impromptu speech. But that's okay.
Do you want to send that down to Jennifer and let her start reading the top?
Proclamation honoring citizenship in the town of Basalt to Amanda Boxtel. Whereas, however effective government may be in serving the needs of its citizens, the character of our town depends on the relationships of our citizens, families, friends, and neighbors. And whereas strengthening those bonds lies in the hearts of the people, individuals who participate to help create a living, thriving community. These citizens are the unrecognized, unsung heroes of the town.
Whereas in 1992, Amanda Boxtel was faced with a life-changing injury following an accident while skiing at Snowmass. Since that time, she has become renowned as an example of courage over adversity. Amanda has continued to lead a life of purpose and a life filled with adventures.
In 1995, Amanda and Houston Cowan founded Challenge Aspen. From the beginning, Challenge Aspen believed access, community, and participation were the keys to healing, to establishing rewarding lives for those with disabilities.
And I cry when we give these to anyone, including 6-year-olds who have really done nothing. So, in 2010, Amanda learned about bionic exoskeleton suits, machines that help people with mobility issues walk. Amanda took her first steps in 18 years. I knew it. Using an exoskeleton, and went on to raise funds to purchase her own. After experiencing the beneficial effects of walking with the exoskeleton, Amanda decided to share her exoskeleton with other mobility challenged individuals.
In 2014, Amanda founded Bridging Bionics to provide high-tech physical therapy to people with mobility impairments at little or no cost to the patient. Amanda now travels the world advocating for people with disabilities and raising funds to help those who suffer from a musculoskeletal challenge to gain freedom of mobility. She is a passionate and dynamic motivational speaker who captivates audiences with her stories, weaving in the valuable lessons she has learned along the way. Amanda warms the hearts with laughter and compassion. In 2018, Amanda was recognized for her work and named a 2018 CNN Cable News Network Hero.
Bring it on home, Auden.
Amanda's overall message is one of never giving up in pursuit of the best quality of life possible. From her life experiences, she has a greater sense of healing, and that transformation occurs from within. She believes in the divine connectedness of all things, and she aspires to help make the world a better place for future generations. Now, therefore, the Basalt Town Council is proud and honored that Amanda Boxtel is a resident and community member, and hereby proclaims that the town of Basalt and the world is a far, far better place for the caring deeds of Amanda Boxtel.
So, I told you you could talk. I did. We'll actually deliver this to you, too. So Amanda, thank you for coming in to be with us.
Thank you. Thanks. So, I'm really, really humbled and very appreciative. I'm not a, I am a hero, and I'm owning it. Learning too that the real heroes are the clients in our program who show up and they want to feel better in their bodies. I feel like it should be a human right to have access to technology that is cost prohibitive, and it should be a human right to be able to walk and to feel good about yourself and to have a better quality of life, to feel the blood circulate through your limbs and the swelling to go down from your ankles and your digestive system to function more regularly, and to be able to stand and fully weight bear on your legs. I've been paralyzed for 26 years. I never dreamed that I could walk again. I always had this uncanny sense that I might. I just didn't know how. And we've got the gift of technology. And what we're doing in our small community is extremely unique. You won't find this anywhere else in the nation or in the world. We're truly gifting mobility, and we're doing it at no cost. $500 is all we charge per year for an annual program fee. When you look at the cost of the capital equipment, $175,000 robot that someone gets to walk in, we own 2. The cost per session is $300 per hour, and we're giving it away. And I would say probably about close to 50% of our clients are fully scholarshiped. They don't even pay the $500 per year because we want to give mobility and enable people to have a better quality of life. I felt it in my own body, I live it, and great things are born out of necessity. And so now here we have in our community access to technology with trained physical therapists, and we're getting results. This technology is in a health club setting. We bypass the medical system. We don't bill for insurance because it's not reimbursable anyway. And we're just getting people mobile and up and walking. And so I thank you for your support. It's taken a vision, but it's taken a team, and it's my team, the Bridging Bionics physical therapists and trainers. And it's our clients who just show up 2-3 times a week because they want to feel better. And now even some of those individuals are walking on their own 2 legs and feet, unassisted. And I wonder if 26 years ago when I was paralyzed on Snowmass Mountain, I wonder if I had access to this program and to this technology, if I too could have shown some more improvement. And that's what we're giving. So we celebrate this community and the valley that we live in for creating this with me. And I thank you for the honor.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. And I invite you, we're in the Snowmass Club, and we're down at Midland Fitness in Glenwood Springs. We have 2 facilities, so I invite anybody, please reach out to me, come observe, come volunteer, and be a part of it and see the changes that are taking place. It's pretty incredible.
So can people reach you just by looking up Bridging Bionics?
Yes, bridgingbionics.org on the website. We're 5 days a week. We've got, I schedule probably about more than 30 sessions a week for clients up and down the valley. We've helped about 67 individuals with neurological impairments in our valley, ranging from spinal cord injury, quadriplegia, paraplegia, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, any type of neurological condition. We can help them with various advanced technologies, including whole body vibration and bionic exoskeleton suits. So there you go.
Thank
cool.
you, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda.
So Janice, you want to follow that?
And I have information almost as exciting, right? So, my name is Janice Voss Caudill, and I'm the Pickens County Clerk and Recorder. There's 3 things I just want to give you a heads up on, or updates. I know that Regina O'Brien was here last month and gave the community an update on elections. The primary elections is on the 26th. Ballots dropped last week. So just a reminder, if you haven't seen your ballot in the mail, get online, pickandvotes.com, see where it went, follow up and give us a call to make sure you get your ballot. Now, new this year with the primary election is the Democrats will receive their Democratic ballot, the Republicans will receive their Republican ballot, and all unaffiliated voters in the state of Colorado will receive both ballots in the mail. They have the right to vote in a Colorado primary election. So when you receive both ballots as an unaffiliated voter, choose one, vote one, and return one. Okay? We have a drop box right outside Basalt Town Hall in the parking area. You can drop your ballot there if you're from Eagle or if you're from Pickens. We have a plan, we harvest them accordingly. The other thing I wanted to let individuals know is if you're unaffiliated and you vote one of the ballots, you do not become affiliated. You still remain unaffiliated. Although please be aware that Colorado clerks are required to record your preference of what ballot you selected. So that will be documented as an unaffiliated voter, whether you returned a Democrat or a Republican ballot. And that information is gathered for reports. All right? The other thing I wanted to let individuals know is that if you just love to go to the polls to vote and you don't want to vote your mail ballot, early voting starts next week, the 18th. In Pickens County, early voting is at the Aspen Jewish Community Center on Main Street. The Eagle is at the Crown Mountain Center, the motor vehicle office. Hours are from 8:30 to 4:30, and we're also open on Saturday. Okay. Again, Election Day is on the 26th, 7 to 7. All right. Before I go on to the next topic, do you have any questions?
I've got one. With regard to the unaffiliated voters, and you get the one ballot from each, if you have a preference to vote in the primary for one of the Democratic governor, people that are running, and then have a preference to vote in the Republican House, can you mix and match in that regard?
So if you choose to vote both ballots and return both ballots, neither ballot will be counted.
Okay.
You choose one ballot, either the Democrat or the Republican, and you vote that ballot. The preference of which ballot you return will be recorded. Okay? So, yeah. That's a good question.
Just to confirm, that ballot box right out there, we can put our ballots in.
That ballot box right out there, anybody from Eagle or Pickens County can put their ballot in. We have an agreement and worked together a few years ago. Teak and I worked together and worked with the Secretary of State's office before we implemented that drop box.
So that's true for any election?
That's true for any election.
Okay.
That's true for any county election with Eagle.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, because
I can only speak for Regina and myself. The other thing I wanted to say also is early returns. So, you don't like those electioneering calls. Return your ballot. You're taken off the list. The other thing is, the second thing I want to mention is if you want to know what the returns are after 7 o'clock on election night, go to pickandvotes.com. The first thing we do after 7 o'clock is download all reports, upload into the Secretary of State's election night reporting system, which we are linked in at pickandvotes.com, and you can go on the system and see what the returns are. So early returns means you're in the first returns on election night. The last thing I want to mention, unique to Pickens County, is we are a home rule charter. And candidates petition onto the ballot. We are nonpartisan at Pickens County level. If we do not have 3 or more individuals running for a race, there will not be a county race in the primary. So what does that mean? I can review with you who petitioned on the ballot. There are not 3 or more individuals in each race, and they are automatically forwarded to the general election, okay? So the open positions are Commissioner 1, District 1, which is Patty Clapper and Rob Ittner are running against each other. Commissioner District 2, replacing Rachel Richards. We have one candidate running, Kelly McNicholas Curry, who happens to be my election manager. She is running uncontested. We also have the assessor's position, which is open, and the two individuals running for that race are Deb Bamesberger and Mick Ireland. For the sheriff's race in Pickens County, Joe DeSalvo and Walter Chi, and for the clerk's position, myself, nobody's running against me. Okay? All right. So that concludes my election information, unless you have anything else.
Anybody?
Okay. The other two things I wanted to mention is we're moving. Pickens County is moving back into the administrative offices, 530 East Main Street, the week of July 16th. Are you too? Yeah.
The next week.
Yeah. I want to let people know that the clerk's office is moving July 27th. It's a Friday. The state IT department has to come down and move all my equipment for the motor vehicle department. All my offices will be closed that day. Elections, recording, and motor vehicle. We're moving that weekend. We will up and running Monday the 30th. Okay. Now with that, both Eagle and Pickens County, we are going through a motor vehicle conversion statewide, $93 million project. We've been working on it for the next 18 months. Our offices will be closed statewide August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We are doing a conversion for 5 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All of us will be back up and running on Monday, the 6th of August. In addition to our offices being closed, the driver's license offices will be closed on Thursday and Friday throughout the entire state. So we'll be advertising, we'll let people know so you don't make a trip. Waste your time. Okay? Exciting.
Is that it?
I'll keep you posted, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks,
coming.
Janice.
Awesome. All righty.
See you in the fall.
Okey doke. Okay. Our next item is first reading of ordinance 11 and an ordinance of the town amending chapter 18 building regs of the Muni Code of the town of Basalt regarding sustainable building regulations and miscellaneous cleanup items and amending the town's fee schedule. This has been a long time coming as well.
And Jim's not even here to see all the excitement.
Where is he?
You have a knee replacement.
You got a second?
Sarah, how are you?
Good, thank you.
All right. Did you get enough Chinese food?
I did, I actually kind of overate a little bit.
That's the plan, always. Right. Okay, let's give Sarah our attention.
So, Sarah Nadelli with the town's planning department, and here at the table we have Jeff Dickinson with Biospace Incorporated.
Hi, Jeff.
And we have Sarah Bruin from CORE is in the audience, and Amanda Poindexter, if you want to come up to the table. Amanda's going to be doing some presenting tonight. So again, this is first reading of ordinance number 11, series of 2018, and this is proposing amendments to the town's adopted sustainable building regulations. The amendments were spearheaded by the Basalt Green Team with a subcommittee that was made up of town staff, consultants, and Green Team members. And some of the council members, you've seen an introduction to this previously for the old council back in April, I believe it was. So we'll be giving you more information tonight and probably rehashing a lot of things that you've already seen. So it's important at this time to amend the sustainable building regulations. We call them SBRs, so I'll be using that shorthand language. The SBR type 1, the single family and duplex residential, was originally adopted in 2009, and SBR type 2, which is multifamily and commercial, was adopted in 2015. Now, in 2017, the town of Basalt adopted the Climate Action Plan for the Eagle County community and an additional amendment that created aggressive greenhouse gas emission reduction targets of 25% by 2025 and a minimum of 80% by 2050. The amendment also identifies 6 strategies to help the town to meet these aggressive goals. So these proposed amendments that we're proposing here tonight will aid in further reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions, resulting in more energy efficient buildings and future cost savings to energy users. And the amendments will also merge the requirements of the SBR with the 2015 International Energy Conservation Code, or IECC, which the town adopted, and further requirements, and adds further requirements to elevate the SBRs over the minimum of the IECC, so becoming actually even more green. Staff anticipates continuing this first reading tonight until June 26th in order to allow the town attorney to fully review the attached draft ordinance. But we do have that before you here tonight to ask questions on or for clarifications of. And so our objective here today is to provide council with as much information as needed in order to have an informed discussion and understanding of the proposed changes. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda to start her presentation.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good to see you again. Here is our graph showing our emission targets under the Climate Action Plan. And as you can see, buildings account for most of our emissions. So the only way to reach those goals is to make not only the existing buildings, but future buildings more efficient. What we're doing is we've already adopted the energy code. And outside of the energy code, we are implementing these other parts to just kind of holistically think of the project. It also is fairly similar to the LEED certification. So we have, good site use, implementing density, community connectivity, preserving and conserving water, as well as promoting recycling and reuse of materials, as well as efficient framing techniques, providing incentives to use more renewable energy, promoting great indoor air quality, reducing, the toxic emissions that we are putting in these buildings that we spend 90% of our lives in, according to most stats, and also an area for innovation. So anything outside of that we can evaluate and reward points for. We're also outside of I guess within the energy code, there's additional compliance pass. This is just, we have a component aspect to it, as well as more of a systems thinking performance, and we have the net zero energy ready path, as well as the LEED certification path. So it just provides architects and builders with options. So as you can see, these are all of our compliance paths. This is the type 1. And this is in your packet as well. And this is our type 2. So as you can see, as we move further to the right, that's kind of more holistic, kind of the easier way to achieve efficiency. Another revision we are adding is we have minimum point thresholds. In the regulations before, we kind of just had, especially in the commercial, it was new construction, it was core and shell, and tenant finish. We didn't account for warehouses or, the different levels of remodels that are going on. So now we're kind of looking at the development that's happening in Basalt and will continue to happen, and kind of creating different categories for those. And also requiring points in each of those parts. So each of, okay, great, you have this many points in renewable energy, but what about your site conservation and water conservation? So we are, kind of just making you look at every part of our checklist. And number 4, we are adding the continuing education requirement for those applying for permits. We have already approved the $10,000 for the contractor education training, and we will do those quarterly. As well as, I know we have our first one planned for June, I wrote that down, for July 25th, I will be hosting kind of an info session, a lunch and learn, similar to the open houses that I have already done, just to help everyone with the process and what we're
Amanda,
implementing.
quick question.
Yes.
It says free training to be provided by the town for 1 year following approval. How are we notifying contractors and subs or whoever this applies to? How are we notifying them that they have a year for free training?
Right now, it is up on the building department page, and we've also sent out a couple emails to different avenues of distribution, and yeah.
Okay.
And I guess it's up to the town council and the budgetary process if you want to continue the free training. You know, I think Amanda will talk in a minute about the SBR commentary, which is kind of a companion document that we plan on having these educational opportunities, and some of them are free, that are offered through the building council and CORE. We're hoping that maybe CORE can provide some additional training. So we'll be talking more about it in the budget for next year.
Okay, great.
It'll be free.
All right.
All right. So number 5, we have also created a SBR review committee, and this consists of the town manager, building official, the town planner, and a CORE representative. They will, you know, they're there to make interpretations and grant the minor exemptions based on unique circumstances or hardships. So just to be fair for every situation. Another change. So we have always, in the original regulations, we offered a rebate of 25% if you went for a LEED Gold certification in commercial buildings. And right now, we're kind of bringing that over to the residential type 1. If you choose to go LEED for Homes Gold certification or the Zero Energy Ready, we are offering that rebate for the building permit fees.
Is that effective immediately, or when has it been in?
It would be effective.
Once the ordinance is passed.
Yeah, right. And also another aspect of this is our commentary. So every international code, they issue the code, and they also issue the code with commentary. So it's kind of a explanation of everything that's going on. This is a little excerpt of one of the checklists. So we have included the checklist, the flow charts for how, you know, which path you choose, as well as just kind of some of the abbreviations we've used, and it's just highlighting and summarizing pertinent information. And finally, we are allowing for the type 1 SBR, we are allowing mitigation for your larger hot tubs, your pools, your snow melts. You can do that through offsite or a fee in lieu payment. That would be more so than if you were to mitigate that energy use on site, but at least it's an option. So that's all I have. Do we have any questions? Sarah, did you want to say anything?
No, I was just gonna kind of follow the training, but you spoke about that, or about the info session. We do have something planned for July 25th at this point, you know, to invite, you know, assuming this keeps moving forward, to invite contractors and interested parties too, and then planning something tentatively in August as well, so that, you know, we'll be getting the information out there once, you know, when we're through the process.
Great. Anybody? Okay. What else? Is that it?
Yeah, I think right now, I know there's a lot of information, and we'd love to see what people's council and public's questions are, or concerns, or, you know, things that we could clarify, because there is a lot of information out there.
Okay. This is not actually a public hearing,
Yeah,
but
it
it is?
Yeah. This is first reading.
But
that's not a public hearing, it wasn't marked.
Does not say public hearing,
Oh,
sorry.
well, I'm sorry, the motion said it just didn't get on the agenda, but
Okay.
it is a public hearing.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing at 6:50. Is there anyone in the audience who has questions or comments regarding this ordinance? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, what we really wanted to accomplish, is it's a daunting ordinance, and this is really the first time that the council had seen it, and, we wanted to, give the council an opportunity to ask questions, that if we need to bring back any information. Our hope was really to keep it on track, so that so the motion would be to continue the first reading and public hearing until, June 26th, and then we would have the second reading in, is it July 10th, Pam, at that meeting. So at the next meetings, we're hoping not to have such a full presentation and have a briefer discussion, but we wanted to make sure that if there was any questions or discussion, that we could have it now, and just expect that there's some cleanup of the ordinance that Jeff Conklin, our town attorney, will be doing between the first reading and the second reading.
Auden.
Yeah, I'd just say thank you for all the work Sarah, Jeff, and Amanda have put in on this. This is, really, it's just an update that we already have, and it gets better. It's a key part of our climate effort. If we can chunk away at something like this every council meeting, we'll make progress on our climate goals. It's not particularly onerous in that it's just becoming consistent with Carbondale and Aspen, so it's making the valley consistent. I just urge us to pass it as soon as possible. That timeline sounds fine. I'd do it sooner than that, because it's been in the works for so long.
Right.
And it's a great step forward, so.
Jennifer.
Likewise, huge gratitude for this huge amount of information. Reading through it, there's a couple points of clarification. On the commercial standpoint regarding the proximity to the bus stops, school locations, etc. It doesn't state what the half mile, how that's measured. If it's as the crow flies, I know that's nitty gritty detail, but that's something that I picked up. As well as seeing the opportunity to advertise the information sessions on the permit, the yellow permit cards, because everyone tends to look at those, especially the contractors at the beginning. And there's a lot of excellent information on there, and that's a great way to make it feel more required. So that's a great way to initiate buy-in. Another idea, so this will go into effect whenever we pass this. And so I asked the question of how does that affect permits that are already out there? Is it only for new permits that come in? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. And I wish that this had been in place a while ago, and it's so exciting. And it's very attainable. I read through this and I thought, I think my addition remodel that we're about to complete, we could reach these goals and achieve it, and that's excellent. And so it's a really good checklist. It's logical, and it brings up ideas for the homeowner and contractors of, oh man, we forgot about the Lego block foundation pieces. We should go that route. That's great. So good job compiling that checklist, and I hope that it sparks a lot of people's paths forward.
Awesome.
And one more, this is kind of the same question over and over, but it's always about the elephant that's not sitting in the room. And is this going to take anybody by surprise? Auden is sounding like people kind of know we're already sort of an enclave of everybody's doing this already. Does that sound right to you? Okay, because I hate surprises. Yeah, Auden.
Go ahead, Katie. Do you have something? No. One quick thing. We're incentivizing people that do net zero ready and other progressive building with a 25% fee reduction. That seems so cheap to me. You know, like if we want people to do really progressive building, I would advocate for 50%. I know I was in those conversations and we had some rationale for this, but I just think, come on, time is short. Let's give people throw them a bone.
Did you have any response to that? Or is it, just a second, or is it just gonna be, let's watch this and see for a while and see if the incentive is adequate or not?
It's up to the finance department. We want 100%, I would say.
I feel like we've gone back and forth on this.
Definitely like to see more than 25.
Within the green team, you know, and I think we landed a number, but I'm not exactly calling how we landed on that number.
I had a
Okay,
higher
Susan.
number, I'm sorry, we had a higher number in an earlier draft, and then we checked in with Jim Wilson, and he felt comfortable at the 25. I would say if you want a higher number, that maybe you should ask Ryan to kind of weigh in on it with more discussion with the building department. But at one point, we did have a higher, not 50%, maybe it was like 35 or something, and that's how that
I'm
happened.
fine. I won't fight that too hard.
Yeah. Well, and also maybe between first and second reading, but this is first, right, still? After all this time? Okay. Maybe we could just take a look at any budgetary implications, because I know sometimes we are pretty dependent on building fees. They kind of keep Wilson paid and everything, so maybe there's something to look at for more, and we could at least come back and have that discussion. But I, for one, think that those guys, I think that's a great incentive. It would be for me if I could get 25% off my fees for anything. But maybe we could just circle back on second reading on that one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Another one is just for staff in general, what would be so helpful on a proposition like this is if you can provide us examples of what the fee structures are for the other municipalities. If Aspen and Carbondale are doing this, is there remittance, or is there, if you're not meeting the standards, 15 cents per square foot, is that the industry, is that the standard for everywhere? That would just be really helpful to know, that we're agreeing to what the common fees are, or are we under or over? That would be helpful. And then another, I read this, and one question that still lingers out there for me is, in the case of doing a remodel addition, where do you fit under the table, and defining that more?
So depending on your either cots, if you're adding to the lighting load, changing anything mechanically, or if you're not, if the addition is going to be larger than 500 square feet, then your cot.
Okay, so that's considered an addition and a remodel, so it's the same thing within the table of the minimum number of points?
Well, it should be, I believe the R3 and the addition are the same points, so it wouldn't.
Okay.
You're gonna be one or the other.
Okay, okay.
And we'll double check that for the next time we come back, just to clarify that point for you.
That was, yeah, the one lingering one out there. And R1, R2, and R3, those are the zoning districts, or what do they?
Those are levels stated in the International Existing Building Code.
Okay. Okay, great.
Anybody else, or is there a motion?
So can I have a quick
Sure,
question?
sure.
I'm sorry that we didn't catch this earlier, but it is a public hearing, so the motion needs to be to continue the first reading and public hearing until June 26th. So if we could have the word public hearing in there, that would be great.
Mayor, I move that the town council continue the first reading and public hearing of ordinance number 11, series of 2018 to June 26th, 2018.
Second?
I have a comment.
Okay, so second, additional discussion?
Yeah, why don't we just approve first reading and do second reading in June? Is there any reason not to do that?
Attorney timeline to review the document is what was stated before.
Yeah. I've begun reviewing the SBRs, and there are going to be a few changes. I'm not anticipating that I recommend any substantive changes, but mostly to kind of the introductory parts. You know,
Not a big deal.
you know, it'd be best if they were done prior to first reading, just for everyone to have that, at that first reading.
No problem.
So, why couldn't we make it second and then continue second if we needed to? I mean, I'm kind of with Auden of like, this has been like 100 years on this deal.
I mean, so long as.
Would that matter to you?
No, not particularly, because the substance of what's being introduced at first reading isn't gonna change between now and second. It's gonna be where it's, you know, it's gonna be, looked at to be reviewed and potentially adopted with amendments, so it'd be different than as introduced. But the, in terms of public notice and, you know, the things that need to be met for first and second reading, I don't think that there'd be a big problem with doing it either way.
We have had our 2 public house, like, open houses already.
Well, you know, it sounds like there are some reasons to leave it alone. Maybe. Brian, you get the call.
The final say?
Yeah.
It seems based on, you know, Jeff's input that if you felt comfortable moving forward, we could do that work between first and second to get that information back to you. And if need be, always, you know, continue the second, so.
Yeah, if I may, just to clarify, I don't think it matters particularly too much between first or second. A lot of it's just the time that basically we have a week from today to make sure that we get all those changes done. If it's gonna go to a second reading, so it can get out for that for 2 weeks from now. I guess I can say that I'm okay with that timeline,
Okay.
So long as, Susan, you also think that you and I would have sufficient time to work together on those proposed changes?
And we can always continue it,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Right, exactly. So how do we unfix our motion in second?
I think Ryan would need to amend his motion, or you could probably take a vote and let it die.
Right.
Ooh, I'm
Just
gonna
amend
enjoy
it.
this.
Should we make it die? Okay, all in favor?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so that failed.
Yep.
So is there another motion? Auden?
Yes, I move the town council approve the first reading of ordinance number 11, series of 2018, and have the second reading
And public hearing.
and public hearing June 26, 2018.
And you're continuing the public hearing.
A second.
All right. Are we squared? Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That was kind of fun.
Thank you.
Technicality in there.
It's fun to have them like purposely killed like that.
Killed.
Okay, our next item is, by the way, Amanda, we will not find it disrespectful if you want to go do something more fun. This is, no good deed goes unpunished, right? You have to sit here. You do not have to sit here. Okay. And we will even wait. We'll give you a moment of silence to get out of here if you want. Okay, our next item is a public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 10, an ordinance of the Town of Basalt adopting miscellaneous amendments to the Basalt Community Housing Guidelines. James Lint, Senior, or Junior?
Senior.
Just,
This is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance that would approve of miscellaneous amendments to the community housing guidelines. As background, as discussed the last couple meetings, the town's community housing guidelines have provisions that require for retirees to volunteer at least 1,500 hours a year, as long as they, 1,000 hours a year to remain in their community housing units, as long as they worked in the valley for 10 years prior to retiring. Bach had made a proposal to reduce the number of volunteer hours that would be required. And we also had Doug McDonald from Bach here at the last meeting to further describe Bach's recommendation. I believe Doug is here again to provide comments if possible. Bach's recommendation was to reduce the number of volunteer hours in kind of a sliding scale. which was if you're 65 to 70 years old and you're retiring in your unit, you would have to only volunteer 500 hours per year. And then if you were 71 to 75, it would reduce further down to 250 hours per year. And then beyond age 75, you wouldn't have any volunteer hour requirements. Also built in there would be a possibility for a special housing evaluation committee, which is SHEC review, on a case-by-case basis if you had a retiree that could not meet those volunteer hour requirements. The draft ordinance reflects this. The council provided direction to go towards Bach's recommendation at the last meeting. The ordinance also has some other cleanup items related to some references that has been carried through the ordinance through first reading. So this evening, staff would recommend asking any questions you have of staff, asking for public comments because it is a public hearing, and then providing council discussion. Ultimately, if you're comfortable, you could approve it on second reading.
Thank you, James. Does anyone have questions for James prior to opening the public hearing? Okay, we'll open the public hearing at 7:09. Is there anyone in the public that has comments regarding this? Doug? Or
Well, I spoke to this issue at the
wait.
Come up.
Microphone.
Yeah, you.
Come here, sir. Come here, sir. Come hither.
I can hear Spoke to this issue at the prior meeting, and I guess
Can I stop you 1 second? This is Doug McDonald.
I
and
beg your
he-
pardon.
And he sits
I'm Doug
on-
McDonald, and I continue to speak on behalf of BAC, the Basalt Affordable Housing Commission.
Thank you.
So, simply put, that the, as was already described, the requirements for retiree housing or for a retiree to maintain his position in a retirement situation seemed onerous to BAC. And our recommendation was to reduce the number of hours required in the various age categories, simply because if you look at it realistically, a person who has fulfilled the requirements of eligibility otherwise, meaning he worked 10 years, he or she worked 10 years and in the town and was otherwise qualified, that it would be necessary not only just to pay rent, but to work essentially a half-time job for no pay beyond that. 1,000 hours is a great deal of time. So that was what caught our attention, and we made the recommendations accordingly, cutting it to half. I mean, it's still a substantial contribution to the town, but it's not crippling. The term I used was not volunteerism, but slavery. So that was the basis of our recommendation.
And as a senior, I would look forward to being in slavery. Kidding. Okay, thank you, Doug. Anybody have questions of Doug? All right. Anybody else have any comments regarding this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Council, comments, questions, motions?
Mayor, I move the town council adopt ordinance number 10, series of 2018 on second reading.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good job, James. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks,
Yeah, thanks
Doug.
for hanging out, Doug.
Okay, next item is BPAC, discussion of the 2018 grant program. Watkins, sir.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Let's talk about public art.
Could we introduce?
This is Bear Matthews, and
This is Bear, okay.
he's one of our newest members of BPAC, which stands for the Basalt Public Arts Commission. And this is one of the commissions, one of our citizen committees that we don't hear about all that often. You don't, I mean? I hear about them every day, deal with them every day. Not deal with them, I pleasurably interact with them. But they are people that are passionate about the arts and about public art and about sharing that with the town. So as you all know, the Modio is a series of installations that we have up around town. It went up about exactly a year ago, and it will be up for one more year. So in the meantime, what BPAC is interested in doing is starting a granting program to promote public arts in different ways around town. Just as public art means lots of different mediums, lots of different things, they would like that kind of flexibility to promote the arts in town that way. And so I guess at this point, I'd like to say that the purpose of what we're here to do today is to get feedback from you all about this idea that we have, and get the go-ahead, if it's appropriate, if you guys like the idea, to come back on the 26th with a resolution to formalize this process. So just some general details about the granting program. $60,000 was allocated for the 2018 budget for BPAC, and they would like to offer some grants, kind of medium-sized grants between $500 and $20,000. General operating expenses are one thing that would not be allowed, as what is a staff recommendation. We have some staff recommendations that are the first attachment in your packet, and we actually have amended those. In the meantime, we had our BPAC meeting on Thursday, where we discussed some of the staff recommendations and kind of felt that there was some room to improve them. And so then we've reconvened as staff as well and come up with some more recommendations, which I believe are in front of you, that red line copy. So general operating expenses would not be allowed. But we do want to be able to fund a variety of public arts activities. One thing that we might want to hit on with you all is the selection process for how grants would be selected. We are proposing that all the members of BPAC be on the selection committee, unless obviously one of the members of BPAC is bringing an application forward, in which case they would obviously recuse themselves. And if there were need for more numbers, one or two, up to two members of town staff could fill in for that. So there are a lot more details that we could go into with this. I'd be happy to. But Bear, would you like to add anything?
No, I mean, beyond anything else, this red copy here just stands to outline our vision to further develop the definition of operating expenses. We believe that there's an integral part in the arts community of giving grants and allocating some operating expenses towards educational activities. Slight grey area there. Also in point number 4, as you'll read, we do have a strong belief and understanding that, if possible, all BPAC members should sit on the granting committee. As Watkins touched on, they would of course recuse themselves of any one program if they represent a company or organization who is applying for a grant. And beyond anything else, this grant program is here and stands to be a part of the belief that we see that economic development is strongly improved with the influence of arts in a small mountain town community such as Basalt.
And I can add a little detail to that too. Staff agrees with everything Bear said. But in terms of operating expenses, the gray area he's referring to is the fact that when there's a new program, it usually requires some staff oversight to implement it. But that's not what we're considering general operating expenses. That's part of the program. And so that's how we're approaching that. And then, as Bear mentioned, the BPAC members would obviously recuse themselves if they had an application in front of them. Staff's original suggestion to you all was that if a member of BPAC was going to come forward with an application at any point during the grant cycle, that they would not review any of the grant proposals. We think staff thinks that this is kind of a trade-off. What we have is transparency is the most important thing for us, but we have to balance that, we think, with practicality and also using all the human capital that we have on BPAC, because it's made up of art professionals and people who are passionate about art, and we think that those opinions are very valuable in making decisions about what should be funded. So that's the trade-off we're working with.
Okay. Yeah.
I have just a couple quick comments that would go along with what we heard. So this morning, in fact, Susan and myself were working with the attorney, and also we were working with Watkins, talking a lot about this. Like, what's the best way to roll out a new grant program? And the one thing that we kept reminding ourselves is that, you know, this is a new idea for us. It's capped at $60,000 for this year. And so we got on the phone with Jeff Orsolak, and he's supposed to be showing up here in a few minutes. But he kind of explained to us, and they mentioned it, that, you know, as appointed members of a town committee, they felt that they should be entrusted with this public money to be able to make good decisions on where the grant monies would go. Ultimately, it does come back to council for ratification. We would suggest initially that it go on to a consent agenda, but if there are questions about it, it could always be pulled off and discussed further. But as a kickoff and a showing of good faith, we felt that we could align ourselves with what had come out of, you know, sort of that brain trust, that group that we've appointed, and give it a try. See how it works on this first grant cycle. And, you know, some conditions that we had as staff is, you know, we really wanted to see some tangible product. So we want public art, we want, you know, some type of show or class that would be, you know, generally open to the public and accessible. And that was really what our goal was. And, you know, this would be done on a rolling basis, was their suggestion. So as grants come in, they could, you know, once they gather, be able to get together and review them. And so that way it didn't have to be a strict deadline. If somebody had an idea, they could, you know, certainly bring it forward. And then finally, I would leave you with, you know, after discussion of this notion of recusal, if somebody is going to put, you know, their hat in the ring to get a grant, their position was we would have them recuse themselves during the discussion of their grant, but say you're reviewing 3 or 4, they could participate in the other ones. Mm-hmm. We got an opinion from the attorney that said, you know, there's no legal issue with that. There could be, you know, sort of an optical issue with it. But once again, we kind of faulted back to, you know, if we don't have a showing of good faith for, you know, this group that we appointed, then, you know, we don't want them to get sort of discouraged to be able to participate and raise this, you know, public art program. So that's where we are with it from a staff, and I think, you know, there could certainly be some further discussion from you all, but we're in support of it at this point.
Carrie?
Well, I mean, I was gonna bring up that point. It seemed like we were getting into the weeds of managing this, where really truly it's us to be fiduciary on this, because we appointed this board to make this happen. So, you know, I was comfortable moving it forward without really hearing the details of recusals and all this other stuff. So,
Madam Mayor, may I
Yes, sir.
suggest that we take public comment? If that would be all right?
Sure, let's take public comment. Why not? Come on up. Just find yourself a mic.
Okay.
You can move that mic if you would prefer to stand.
Come on in.
There, welcome. Hi, everybody. It's Jenna Moe. I'm Executive Director over at the Art Base, and thanks for letting me speak. This is exciting progress for Basalt. I'm very happy that BPAC has entertained the ideas of making grants to artists and organizations. And it's a fun challenge for the Art Base to consider programs that fit into this and not just think of general operating, which is more normal within municipalities, is general operating support for these types of grants. So it'll be fun to come up with specific programs that fit in. I want to urge the council to take a close look at feedback and support for the arts going forward in terms of Modio is a 2-year temporary sculpture. So when the installation's over, will BPAC then have direction to entertain a new RFP for a new sculpture that will consume that $60,000, or will there still be grant programs available? I think that's a big question amongst arts organizations here and artists is, well, what can we expect next? And how is that Cypress Meadows Arts RITA allocated? And I know the Cypress Meadows RITA is different than the Willits RITA, which is specifically for TACA, and I support that. So knowing there's a separate arts RITA, will it go to BPAC every year, or just in years when there isn't 1% of capital improvement projects? So I think there's a lot of questions surrounding the future of BPAC. And for me and the art base, it's important because if we put a lot of effort into designing programs, we want to sustain those programs. We want to know that we can keep improving them and keep offering them. One example is the Aspen Community Foundation had Enrichment Wednesdays, which they fully supported. And we offered after-school classes through them. And that program has morphed over the years. And so as their support for that has waned, we've started our own after-school classes. But each time we launch a new program, it takes time to catch on. It takes time for the parents to adapt to new schedules and for our own funding to catch up and support them. So I would hope that we would consider new programs that we could make possible for years going forward. And of course, that's contingent on grant support. So it's something to think about is how do we proceed, and what does public art look like in Basalt? Will there be another RFP for a new Modio, which is, you know, a sculpture of that caliber is incredibly expensive to install and maintain, as you all know. In addition to that, I just wanted to say about the recusal process. I know that it's mandatory that TACA and Art Base both have seats on BPAC, and because of that rule, it makes the voting process a little tricky, because I know Hannah from the Art Base and Jeff from TACA have spent a lot of time on this grant process. So for them not to be able to participate in the process, it's like, well, then why do they have seats on the commission, right? Maybe that should be relooked if they wouldn't be allowed to participate. In addition to that, I think a rolling basis is really interesting. I think that if there's only a certain amount of funds to give out, though, without a firm deadline, would it be hard to know what the options are looking forward, knowing that public art is incredibly expensive to install and maintain? And then I know the city of Aspen, I've been speaking with Sarah Roy, who's the new executive director of the Red Brick. They are, I think, next year proceeding with a comprehensive study about what arts do for society and how the city of Aspen supports the arts. And I wonder if there's a way to tag onto that or be included or find out more about it in terms of how we are forming our new BPAC. I think it would be interesting to learn more. So yeah, we're really excited for the opportunity and greatly appreciate the town's support and the hard work of BPAC and its members. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Jenna.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jenna.
Jeff, did you have a comment?
Yeah, my apologies, guys. I had a little emergency I had to take care of, so I'm going late. Had a friend hospital whole thing. So
Oh, geez.
my apologies for being late. But thank you so much. I'm sure you guys have covered everything at this point, right?
I think so.
Okay. Let me say we have a really good group, and you guys are really lucky to have them. There's, arts educators, arts administrators, and then little old me who doesn't have any of those skills. But I think we've got a group that's going to really help you guys out and help you guys make good decisions when you're spending money on the arts. So we appreciate that opportunity, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff.
And once again, my apologies, guys. So just an emergency came up.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, really, you came. Okay.
Let's not talk about speed.
All right. So let's go to council for comments and thoughts. This isn't a public hearing, but you can have a comment.
We could talk.
It's not a public hearing, but you are welcome to make a comment.
I would like to.
Please,
To the mic, please.
to the mic.
Speak into the mic, Lynn.
Can you give me an example of what a grant would look like?
A grant could go to a working artist in the valley or in Basalt who would like to create some kind of exhibition, of any medium that would be open to the public.
Okay. And what else?
Do you guys want to jump in?
Sure. I think we did a lot of research on kind of how different granting organizations work, and what we found was the ones that seemed to be most successful were the ones that had So that's what we're kind of focusing towards, is kind of having some flexibility with how we grant. And, we think that if you look at the documents, we've kind of created kind of a range of things that we can do to help the arts economy, whether it's education, an event, or like Watkins said, an artist, if we see a piece that kind of makes sense. And at the same time, I think that what we see is communities that spend money on the arts and spend money on the arts that are kind of creating more kind of event or kind of that kind of focus versus a piece that kind of a put that there mentality versus a kind of create new opportunities for art to happen. We think that create new opportunities for art to happen is far more powerful, and it's really hard to find an amazing piece, especially for kind of the amount of money we're talking about. We all know the Millennial Bean in Chicago. It's an amazing piece of art, and it does amazing things for Chicago. But that's a kind of piece that's kind of outside of our range. So that's kind of what we're thinking about. We're thinking that we want to foster creativity, and foster creativity in a lot of different ways. Whether it's, like I said, creating more opportunities for education, events, those kind of things.
That helps a lot, thanks. I would just like to put my 2 cents in on permanent funding for BPAC. If it is contingent upon whatever the taxes coming off of this one development, and that will run out, no?
No, it's in perpetuity.
The $60,000 is in perpetuity?
Well, the numbers will change, yeah. But the average kind of...
Let's let Ryan say something.
So you're right with regard to the real estate transfer assessment. That isn't a predictable amount each year. So if we continue with this program, it may be that some years it's less than this $60,000 number, or it could be more, perhaps. That's depending upon council's discretion. I do want to make sure that there's a clarification. We also have, as part of arts funding, the 1% that we sort of cordon off with our capital improvements. And so that's a different pot of money
Right.
that would be available, and we're not using that for this particular grant cycle.
So you do have that 1%, though, sitting somewhere?
This was just the Rita, I thought.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yes, so we've been saving that, except for the underpass, the council had made a
That
decision on.
got taken away,
Right.
right? So what current project is producing that 1%?
The East Valley Road project will
Oh.
produce that.
Asphalt, huh?
The asphalt did not, because that was maintenance. Yeah.
$500,000
Yeah.
of traffic calming.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, that one will
Okay.
produce it, yes.
Okay, I would like BPAC to get on some really permanent funding for the arts in this town. If they're all sort of waiting around, deciding, not knowing how much tax they're going to get or what is going to happen, it just doesn't make it a very, you can't plan, you can't go forward, even with a bigger project than these that are going to be. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear what the size of the grants were going to be.
Between 500 and 20,000 is what we're proposing.
Oh.
$500, not
500.
Yeah. I did get that. I did
No,
get
we do
that.
not, but I just want to
Well,
clarify
I'm going to
that.
have to think up a really great flower project.
Thank you, thank you. So back to council, right?
Actually, Madam Mayor, if I could just clarify 2 things that came up, wow, that's loud, during that process. One was that BPAC is an advisory committee, so they're advising council, and council is making the ultimate decision on those grant proposals. And then 2, the town's code of ethics applies to any of its advisory committees. That's kind of why there was some discussion on that point. And the proposed review structure will fit within that code of ethics for the town.
It sounded like a rehash of exactly what we do, so. Other council? Yeah.
So in general, this comes back to this continuing agenda item that we need to have, which is the role of our various different advisory boards and how they are structured and how we go forward and what council wants. And it feels like right now this is whack-a-mole. So I'd really like to see that on the very near agenda. We need to work on what our committees are doing, how they do it, and why they do it, and how the funding works for all of this.
I agree. And whether they're standing or whether they're ad hoc, et cetera. I totally agree, because it does appear that different trains go on different tracks at some points in time. Was that your gist of it, or did you have specifics?
That was the first, and then specifically, I'm glad that the addendum was added on number 6, that the council would approve the grants through the consent agenda. That's really important because that wasn't in the original, and that was a big question of, wow, we're just handing over $60,000 to an advisory committee, and that was, so I'm glad that that was brought back. As well, I'm aligned with staff's suggestions of having this very clear. And then to put it back there, since we're having this general whack-a-mole conversation about what does BPAC do, I'd like to, and I hear that members of BPAC are coming to council and asking, I was going to ask BPAC this question, but it sounds like we're both asking each other the same question, which is, what's the vibe on continuing installation public art programming, such as the likes of Inmotio? And from, you're asking me, I'm asking you, so I'll give you my answer. And my answer is, I would be in the hopes that Inmotio has one more year. I was hoping that instead of a grant process, I was hoping that this would come back as and here's our next project. Here's our next installation. And I'm not super on board with the grant process. It just feels like passing it on. And I'd rather maintain the funds to be able to do larger installation into the next year, or into the next 2 years. Because what I'm hearing is that many of the board members of BPAC are interested in using the funding for their own programming. And I recognize that there will be others that will apply for the grant process. And the town of Basalt does fund the arts programs and various arts entities in large amounts of money, and to to designate further funds with the Basalt Public Arts Commission towards those entities. Again, I'm more inclined to see tangible installation public art pieces.
Brian?
What if, I mean, they said some of the grants could be used for that. We haven't even seen any grants yet, so I think shutting it down before it even starts is, because what if all of a sudden we have $6,000, $10,000 grants for public art to replace the motive?
So you're saying it has not been clarified, which it hasn't, and this is on the agenda as a discussion, and so there's gonna be something come back to us. So I'll just talk for a second here. The very first thing I wrote down, which is something that we've just heard from Jeff, is that all of our citizen groups are advisory. I mean, it's not totally clear on some of them, but they all have to be on the tracks of advisory, which means to me, after sitting here for a really long time, is that there is an idea that comes forward, whether it be a land use idea or whatever else, to the council, a specific idea, which this is, it's a grant program, and that, I mean, I don't see this being on consent agendas. I see this program being very specifically, this is what we want to do, let's talk about it, yes or no. Also, I would like to hear a little bit more about what is in the 1% capital projects money. Is it earmarked for anything right now, and how much is it?
Madam Mayor, I can't answer the question of how much we have in there, and it's not earmarked this year for any particular projects.
Was it earmarked last year? Okay.
For Modia, okay.
Okay, do you know how much it is, Susan?
No, I don't.
All right, so we need to know that, I think, because my memory of when that was born, it was public arts. It was supposed to be for public arts. And one of the things that Ryan and Jennifer have also said that I agree with is that I believe that the public arts money should go to things that are visible and tangible personally, because otherwise, I think less people are able to take advantage of it, quite honestly. If it's sitting out on the sidewalk, as it is in Carbondale and Aspen, and I don't know where else, Glowman Springs, I think people are clearly can take advantage of it. I think that the money is limited. I think Jeff made a good point that if it's $60,000 a year, there may not be a lot you can get with that. But if it ends up being $100,000 or $200,000 because of other money that is earmarked in the 1% capital improvements, and you leverage that with grants, and pretty soon you have $300,000, $400,000. So that's me. I believe that the public art should be visible, tangible product. And I'm not saying no to the grant program, but I would have to see in a very clear way how that would be visible and tangible to everybody. So I guess what I would ask of this council is when staff comes back with something from the group for us to really make a decision on, what are the things you want to see included in that? How do you want this to come back to us? Because this was too nebulous for me, quite honestly. And it is down as a discussion, so nebulous is fine. But what would you like to see when staff brings us back? Yeah.
I share the same thoughts and concerns that Jackie and Jen have outlined. In addition, I know we've talked about recusal earlier, but I think it really needs to be clear and transparent and incredibly fair. And I'm sure that everyone's really clear about our code of ethics and our recusal, but perhaps making clear again or doing some type of education through Watkins or staff member about how that operates in our expectations. But yeah, I agree, this is nebulous, and I would like to see, as Jackie was describing, something concrete, tangible for all that lasts a while, not just a one-night thing that very few people can attend. It was just one of your examples, Watkins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give a general nebulous answer to what I think we should have in the town. I really like what Carbondale has, where there's art right downtown and you see it. And I think we, BPAC, can replicate that. It's already doing that already to some extent, but we could do more. And I don't really care how we get there. So if the BPAC thinks that a grant program is the best way, you will be able to select from a range of things and pick the kinds of things that council likes and that you like, and you get there. So I'm fine with that. But I would love to just see that, more public art in the community, and it be done on a, command and control way, or it could be done in a more open way through the grant process.
Anybody else?
I guess, could we direct the grant, if it seems like there's a consensus of not promoting programs that would suit a smaller group of people, couldn't we say, yes, we like the grant program, but we want to, as Auden said, support individual art, not an individual artist, but individual art programs that will create something tangible that everyone in the town can appreciate, a final product.
I mean, I think we have discussed it adequately for staff to get an idea of where many of us are coming from, that it could be a grant program, but I think in general, I think we want to see something. And even if, I can see a program that, I'm trying to think of something that's a program, but is also, you can see it, like you paint a mural on the side of the caboose.
Yeah, and I'd love to respond a little bit to kind of what you guys are talking about, and I know it's not easily back and forth, but I was a little late, so my apologies. But,
yeah.
I think one of the things that's interesting, you were talking about how do we kind of leverage this. I think you used that word, and that's one of our goals, Jen, is to leverage money. And the best way to leverage that money is to use organizations that have the infrastructure to leverage that. They've got staff, they've got people in place, they can make things happen. If we have this $60,000 and we just kind of buy a sculpture, it's going to buy you maybe something, not a lot. You know, I don't know if you're not leveraging your dollars as much as I think you can. If you look at a granting option and kind of finding ways to find organizations that can take that and just take it up a notch. And, you know, I understand the idea of the kind of put that there, which is what you guys are talking about, to put that there. But, you know, think about, you know, Mountain Fair. Mountain Fair is funded by their arts organization, right? That's what they do. That's their big thing. You know, the sculpture thing is something that kind of comes and goes. It's a piece that happens. But Mountain Fair is the big thing, and the big thing that really adds vitality to Carbondale's economy. So I you know, would advise you guys to think about art in lots of different ways. And I think events are affecting a lot of people, a lot more than sculpture sometimes. And I think an education class can affect a lot of people for a long time. Think about back to the teachers that you remember the most and how they've affected you. That's the notion, is if you had an arts class that you could have an educational experience, that can affect people on a grand scale over a long period of time. And $60,000 really goes a long way when you do that, as opposed to kind of just buying a piece and putting it there. That's kind of what we're discussing. We debate the same thing on our side as well. And we have a lot of really smart people that have been doing this a long time that we have these same conversations. But that's kind of where our mind is right now as we're thinking about this grand development. It's not thinking about giving it to certain people. It's thinking about how do we take what we have and leverage it in the biggest possible way we can. And the way to do that is to find infrastructures that's there. When we did Modio, there was a lot of volunteer time within BPAC, a lot of staff time as well, doing things. That was money that you guys had to kind of spend on the backside that wasn't really noticeable. We'd like to kind of eliminate that by finding groups that have that infrastructure in place. We support them. They can leverage that, and then you guys see the return from economically, not just economically, but from experience. So that's kind of what we're thinking, and that's where our minds are. So, you know, mull that over a little bit.
Jenna, one quick one, and we're going to wrap this up.
Sure. Can I just stand?
You just need to be at the mic.
I just wanted to add to my comment that I think that being able to make grants encourages a collaborative nature between the arts organizations. If there isn't an ability to make grants, then there's BPAC, there's SACA, there's the Art Base. I mean, there's hundreds of nonprofits throughout the valley. We're fortunate to have 3 arts ones in Basalt, which is very cool. But for example, the mural on the side of Cassie's, right? That was a project between Mike Salons, the owner of Cassie's, and the Art Base. And if we were to paint the mailboxes like Carbondale has, or the trash cans, that would be a project right now that we would entertain as a solo entity. And if we're able to make requests to BPAC with TACA, then it encourages all of us to work together. And right now, the Modio sculptures, I led the interview with Wynn Bazell, the artist, and then I wrote a whole curriculum for BPAC for education programs in the schools, which would have cost money to do. But the Art Base wasn't compensated for any of that time. And so it's like, well, if you want our help promoting this and educating the youth, it should be a collaborative process. So granting gives us the opportunity to engage with them and to engage with TACA in a more group effort, which I think is really important in the town.
Thanks, Jenna.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that staff has heard a bunch of different things, and I think you heard council. So I think what we need is something a little bit more pulled together, given what our input was and what the public input was, before we can really talk very effectively past this point. So that's what I would suggest.
Jackie, if I could say one thing, right, and I'll make it as quick as I can. Along the lines of events, I just came from a meeting with a group of our Latino community. On July the 21st, we're showing the film Coco, and it's gonna be big. I have a huge investment from the Latino community in this, and it is gonna be an impactful event. It's gonna get us Anglo-stiffies out of our pajamas. It is gonna be fabulous. So don't write off events, because they can be big and exciting. And I have a group of people, and one guy threw out a phrase, basalt of the earth. And that has become my goal tonight. I want to get people here are people spending money. So don't say it's got to be something I've got to walk up and touch, you know, if I'm sitting in the park reading a book. Don't write off events. That's all I want to say.
Okay. Thank you very much, all of you, for all your hard work and the thought you've given to this.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, if we have no further business, anybody have any final? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.